This video is sponsored by Keeper. Stick around till the end of this video for more information. The 24-inch iMac has finally been updated since it was last updated a few years ago with the M1 chip. Now we have the new M3 chip inside of this machine, and this is actually the computer that I've been using for the last week or so, and I wanted to give you a mini review on the brand new 24-inch iMac with the M3 chip. Now for reference, we should start with the specs of my model, which has 24 gigs of RAM, 8-core CPU and 10-core GPU and a terabyte of storage, which I believe is all the maximum specs you can get except for the storage. So just wanted to give you some reference here. But Apple did also provide me with this unit for review, but of course my opinions have always and will always be my own. And fortunately for Apple, I am a sucker for the iMac. I have a lot of positive things to say, but I also have some constructive criticism. Ultimately, I'm just upset that they didn't change a few things that definitely needed changing, which we'll get into more a bit later. But let's start with the most eye-catching part of this machine, and that's honestly the display. This display is a beautiful 24-inch 4.5K display with 500 nits of brightness. Now I'm used to using a Pro Display XDR on a daily basis. I'm blessed enough to use that monitor. It's amazing. Obviously, this display does not quite compete with that. Even the studio display is a little bit better in terms of specs, but I gotta say, on an everyday basis, I really don't notice a huge dramatic difference in quality when using the iMac compared to something like the studio display. Again, compared to the XDR, yeah, it's a little noticeable, but I wouldn't be mad if this was my only display for my computer and I had nothing else to compare it to. It's bright enough for most scenarios, it's super vibrant, and that retina quality is just so crisp. There aren't any other 24-inch monitors out there, in my opinion, that look this good. Apple's Retina displays are still always top-notch for me. Now personally, I'm not a fan of the 24-inch size. I wish Apple had that 27-inch model as well. Better yet, I wish there was a Pro version of this machine. I'd use it in a heartbeat, but we'll talk about that again later. 24 is just a little too small for me, but I think it's a good size for the average household. We actually have the M1 version as our family computer, and my wife or kids have never once made a comment about the lack of a larger model. So, you know, tech YouTuber problems over here. They're the average consumer and they find it perfectly fine. Now this is technically the second generation iMac to feature this new design. You've got this two-tone color option, the white bezel, and it still comes in the exact same color options as it did before. So you have this color here, which is the silver, probably the more conservative option that you can pick. And then there are other bolder options like blue, green, pink, yellow, and purple. Oh, and orange, which I loved the first generation, except for when you take a look at that front. I think I've said it many times. The iMac is one of the most beautiful and aesthetically pleasing machines, but some of these colors in the front, the two-tone option for me just doesn't do it. I just don't like it at all. It's pastel, it's a bit muted, I just don't like it. The bolder color options on the back, those are great. I mean, I loved that orange when you look at it from the back, but then when you get in the front, it's like a pink muted color. It ruins it for me. Now on the back, we have 4 USB-C ports. 2 of them are Thunderbolt 4, while the other 2 are USB 3. As a prosumer, I probably would have loved all of them to be Thunderbolt 4, but I get it. This is more of an average consumer type machine, and so 2 and 2 is what you get. The front of the iMac has a very good 1080p built-in webcam and a studio quality 3 mic array setup. For Apple standards, it's very good. And that is more than enough for FaceTime or Zoom calls. We were stuck with 720p for so long that this camera is fantastic, even though it's the exact same camera that you got on the last iMac that was updated a couple of years ago. The speakers on the iMac are also really, really good. This machine once again features a high-fidelity 6-speaker system with force-canceling woofers and support for spatial audio for music or video with Dolby Atmos. Now, when you look at this machine, you're like, how could you possibly have good speakers? How could there be a woofer? It's so thin, but Apple manages to figure out a way to make it sound really good given its form factor. Basically, the iMac gives you the ability to kind of skip fancy desktop speakers if you don't really need it, or really having to pair Bluetooth headphones all the time. It can absolutely be a media consumption powerhouse with its great display and sound quality coming from this all-in-one form factor. Again, my family constantly watches videos on our M1 model, and we've had 0 complaints from them, who oftentimes criticize the audio levels of other setups in my house. Kids, am I right? So if it's kid approved, I think it's light work approved. Now, what about performance for those who really need to take advantage of what Apple Silicon can offer, but don't really want to spend the money on a pro level machine. They don't want a Mac Studio. They don't want a Mac Pro. They don't want a MacBook Pro. On our last unit, I had a similar setup in specs, 16 gigs of RAM on the M1 chip. It was fine. It could handle basic edits, Photoshop, Lightroom, etc. If I tried to get a bit more advanced, maybe editing 8K footage, lots of effects, rotoscoping video, etc., then things started to get a little sluggish. So far, and again, this is a mini review for a reason, I've only had it for a short amount of time, so I want to caution everyone's long-term expectations, myself included, but this M3 chip has been amazing for even some of those more power-hungry tasks that I just mentioned, and pretty much anything that I have thrown its way so far. I've edited a few videos on this machine as of late, including this one that you're watching right now, and my guess is if I don't cut to some grainy cell phone video of me saying, oh, I had issues, then it was probably pretty flawless. Render and export times are a little slow, which depending on how you work could impact your day and slow you down a little bit, but yeah, for the most part, it's been really, really good overall. I don't think it has quite enough power to be my main work machine for everything that I do, but man, it's getting there. I mean, this could easily be something I set up at my house, at my desk at home that I don't really edit a lot of my videos, but if I'm in a pinch and I need to do that, definitely produce the show for our podcast. There's tons of things that I can do with this. Light photo editing, Photoshop, all of that. The M3 chip is seriously impressive stuff. Also, been playing some games on the Mac lately after I went to a showcase for Apple Gaming that I was at just like a few weeks ago, and the M3 chip does a phenomenal job when it comes to gaming on the iMac. Couple of gripes that I do have. This one goes back to even the M1 machine, but the redesign kind of killed some of the like really useful accessories that I used to use on like the previous iMacs. I don't know if you guys remember those USB-C hubs or just those USB hubs in general that you kind of connect to the bottom of the speaker area, then you plug it around back, and it gave you some extra ports on the front, along with the most important thing, an SD card reader. I get it, it's not aesthetic. Apple's not going to be doing that, initially with how they build its own computers. They probably won't be adding that in, but it was cool to have that option. It's probably not something most people looking into this machine are going to have to worry about, but I mean, if you do anything with an SD card or extra drives, etc., you can see you're kind of limited with the ports department. So you kind of just have like a bunch of adapters and drives hanging for no reason. Also, why on earth did Apple not update these accessories that come with your Mac? I mean, my model came with the Magic Trackpad, the mouse, and the keyboard. You can configure it to get what you need. The accessories are fine. Like, I have no issues with them. They are just like they were before. Nothing bad about the actual product, except for the fact that in a new USB-C age for Apple, where we finally ditched Lightning on nearly everything, including the iPhone, you don't have USB-C on these new accessories. It doesn't make any sense. Now, I'm sure Apple will change all of these in the near future, but it just bothers me that you're gonna have to buy it again if you want USB-C. It's not a huge deal, just use the Lightning cable that comes in the box, but it's just another cable that you have to keep around when in reality, we're trying to get rid of it just so that we can adopt one universal standard. Okay, so who should buy this iMac? Quite literally anyone who needs a nice all-in-one Mac desktop and doesn't need to throw a ton of performance-intensive tasks on a daily or regular basis. That doesn't mean you can't do it, you just probably don't want to do it all the time. I'd look into something with an M3 Pro or Max chip at that point, or even like an older M2 model with Max or Pro chips if you really need that extra performance. Now, if you have an Intel iMac, I mean, what are you doing, man? Upgrade ASAP. This will feel like you're on another planet when it comes to computing. Just the overall experience is so much nicer. I mean, I recently used an old MacBook with Intel, and I mean, the fans kicking on, sounding like a jet engine, being super hot. Obviously, that doesn't happen on an iMac so much, but those are just not anywhere near what you get with an Apple Silicon machine, so definitely worth the upgrade there. Now, if you have the M1, this is where things get a little dicey. Yeah, there's some performance leaps. Maybe you need some better GPU performance. Then I guess it could make sense, especially if you're going to configure your M3 model differently than what you did with your M1, aka get a couple of those extra cores for the GPU. Maybe you want to add more storage or obviously add more RAM. Then yes, that makes plenty of sense. But like, honestly, if you still have an M1 and it's pretty well spec'd, I wouldn't really worry about it so much unless, again, you really need that extra boost in GPU, because that is where most of this lies with the differences in performance between the M1 and the M3. Now, if you're holding out hope for an iMac Pro type machine like I am, Apparently, Apple doesn't really have a lot of plans to necessarily release anything like that right now. So I'm not saying not ever, and I don't think Apple is technically saying no, not ever, but as of right now, you're not getting a pro level iMac that's going to look like this. So you're probably going to have to go with the M3 MacBook Pros, which you can click videos. We have a bunch of them on that topic, and they have been fantastic. So I don't think you'll be disappointed there. You're just going to have to shell out a lot more money. But of course, I would love to hear from you in the comments down below. What do you think about the new M3 iMac? What are your likes, your dislikes? Go ahead and let me know down in those comments. Now, before we end today's video, I do want to give you more information about today's sponsor, Keeper. Keeper is best known for password management as the most secure, certified, tested, and audited password security platform in the world. Keeper's password manager comes in a variety of plans for individuals, families, and businesses. Add-on features are available, including Breach Watch, Keeper's dark web monitoring service, and secure file storage, the easiest way to encrypt and store files that are accessible from any device. Now, if you've never used a password manager before, stop what you're doing, sign up for Keeper ASAP. Gone are the days of forgetting your passwords or trying to remember where you wrote it all down. All you need to do is remember just one master password, and everything else is stored inside of the app, and you can easily fill in those passwords on any website or inside of any application. This will also prevent hackers from stealing your passwords and passkeys. You can easily access your passwords across any device and even different platforms. You can even share passwords with family or friends and then revoke that access at any time. Now, my absolute favorite part of Keeper is not only how easy it is to use and manage all of your passwords, but Breach Watch has saved me time and time again from all of those data leaks. Breach Watch is a powerful tool that monitors the internet and dark web for breached accounts that match the records stored in your Keeper vault. Breach Watch alerts you about compromised credentials so that you can immediately take action and update them before anybody gains any of your sensitive info. For more information, or if you want to download Keeper today and get 40% off personal and family plans with code MacRumors40, visit the link in the description down below. This has been Dan with MacRumors. Thanks so much for watching, and I hope to see you around in the next video.